In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use user presets and tool sets to automate very small pieces of our workflow to make us faster while we're working in NUKE. So I just open up a scene here and it just has two images. And to begin with, let's just look over here on the left and take a look at user presets. Now, if you've opened up any node in the newer versions of NUKE, you'll see this little icon right here, which is a preset. And this allows us to save all of these properties as an easily accessible preset. So I've already got a few presets set up, and I'm just going to hit the C key to drop in a color correct tool. And on these color correct tool, the blur tools, the filtering tools, these type of tools where we have a lot of creative decisions to make is where I find presets to be most useful. So I've already got quite a few presets under my color correct here. We can see I've got a slight gain, warming gain, I've got a slight cooling gain, and these are just presets so I can make really fast comparisons of where I want to begin color correcting this image. Now, of course, I have some stronger ones like a bleach bypass or sunset or with a very heavy shadow and less shadow. But we can really come in and customize each of these nodes and save it as a preset. So let me reset this and let's just come in and build ourselves a preset. So let's say we want our shadows to be green, so I'm just going to jump into let's jump over to offset and go into the colors. Let's just give this a very slight green tint, maybe a little higher value. Just a little bit of green in there. All right. And let's say in our highlights and our midtones, we want them to be a little bit of red. So we can always come into our midtones and highlights, and let's just boost the red levels just ever so slightly in these two areas. And now we'll have a nice color correction that gives us redder midtones and highlights and a slight green offset to our shadow. So if we hit D and D, we can see the difference. Now, to save this as a preset, after you've got the node set up exactly how you want it, go over here to preset and save as a preset. So let's call this our red shadow, this is our green shadow and our red other, or red highlight mids. So now, if we create a new color corrector, let's go over here, hit C again. Now our new preset is going to be saved right here, green shadow, red other. And you'll notice they are ordered in the order of creation. So if we drop that on, we now have those exact same changes we made with the other color correct node, and the properties are stored exactly. So this is an incredibly powerful way to store exact properties, either to keep consistency between scripts or to keep around looks that you know you like or you know you want to access quickly. So those are presets, and you can find them in, I believe, almost every node inside of NUKE, and that is, again, over here in our Properties bin. Now, next we have Toolsets, and this is actually one of my favorite features. We can see here that the original from my EXR file is blown out because we didn't use a linear workflow. So normally you might come into color space and set this to sRGB, and that will correct the coloring, but it will actually clamp our ultra bright values. We can see in the shoulder area we have values of 1. Now if we go back to linear, we can see these are actually ultra bright values. So we do not want to clamp those values. Instead, we want to keep these values around because it's important to keep the high dynamic range. So instead of changing it here, what I always do is add in a color space node. Now instead of hitting tab, typing in color space, looking to find it, and then changing the in to sRGB to fix everything along with our high dynamic range values, I've gone in and I've created a tool set. So to do that, we just need to create a node that we want to save for later. And so this is sort of like a super preset. And it also keeps the name, so I'm just going to call this sRGB to linear. And let's come over here to the left, and we can see this new tool set icon. And in here, we can click Create. It's going to ask us whether we want to place it under the root or one of these folders. And let's see, we do not yet have a folder for, this is the color space node, so I'm just going to create a new folder. So we can just say color space, and then hit the backslash here. You can see that our tooltip is telling us exactly what to do. And we can put in sRGB to lin. Click Create, and it looks like nothing happens. But now, if we ever run into this again, let me just delete that. We can either jump over to our tool set, go to color space, and type in or hit sRGB to linear. But the great thing about these tool sets is they're actually stored in our tab menu now. So if I hit tab and I type in SR, I can just hit down to my sRGB to linear tool set, drop it in, and I'm good to go. Now this does not or is not limited to only a single node. For example, I've got quite a few uses for this, and I found adding this to my workflow has speeded me up incredibly. For example, if we need an alpha channel, or I usually want to fill in a solid alpha channel if something is missing an alpha channel, instead of actually going to the shuffle node, typing everything in, I just hit tab, and I've got myself an all alpha tool set, which is simply the shuffle node set to a white alpha. And as you can see here, that makes that very quick. Now where this really gets great is for setting up 3D scenes. Now if you've ever set up a 3D scene by hand, you know how tedious it can be. We usually need the exact same nodes every time, and it's a little bit difficult to not only remember, but remember all the connections. So in my tool sets, I've gone into my 3D section. I've created a basic 3D setup with a scene, a camera, a constant, and our scanline render already created. And I've got another one in there in case I want to actually test out some shaders or some textures with a sphere. So by dropping this in, or by creating this tool set, you can see I'm already 90% of the way there on my 3D scene setup. I just need to plug in the rest of my nodes and get my textures and loaders in order, and we should be good to go. So you can see by using tool sets to speed up your normal everyday workflows, you can save quite a lot of time. And these are incredibly flexible. If we have gone in and changed half of these properties, they would all be stored inside of that tool set. So remember that we have a lot of ways we can now speed up our workflows here inside of NUKE. If we use a combination of properties very often on a specific node, we can use the preset system to save that information and keep it around. And if we use multiple nodes, we can use tool sets to make it very easy to come in and recreate those tools on the go. So let's see, I believe this is called my 3D scene here. So basic 3D setup, just hit tab, my basic 3D setup with sphere, and boom, I am ready to begin doing some 3D compositing. So while you're working, just take a look at the repetitive things you're doing and see how you can use presets and tool sets to be able to speed up your own workflows.